At the moment, what we're seeing is an increase in our testing capacity, an increase in our contact tracing, and an increase in our ability to act very swiftly if any outbreaks do occur. And as long as this continues, then this puts us on the path outlined by the Prime Minister and the National Cabinet 2.5 weeks ago to look at whether further restrictions can come off then. If we do get increased numbers of outbreaks, if we do get a rise in the number of new diagnoses, then obviously this will have an impact on those decisions. But that's not what we're seeing at the moment. What we're seeing at the moment across the country is a continuing low number of new infections, and everything is moving in the right direction.
So on the other hand, if and when restrictions are eased, seeing as we are on track, as you just mentioned there, what would be the trigger point to have to go back, if you like? We know we're being told there will be some more infections. Is it a certain infection rate, and that's when there'll have to be an announcement, this is not working, we're putting restrictions back in place?
So I know this is a concern, and the concern is around whether, with restrictions coming off, we would see a second wave of infections occurring in Australia, and we are doing all that we can to ensure that that doesn't happen. And as I say, that's through the increase in the testing and tracing that we're having, the ability when we do get an outbreak to move in very quickly, but really importantly, very important that everyone in Australia continues to play the part that they have so magnificently to date to make sure that we're all doing our bit to stop the spread.
But what is that point when you say that, you know, we're conscious of that second wave of things are in place? At what point will we know it's not working?
Well, we'll know it's not working if we see a substantial increase in the number of cases occurring either in a single location or right across the country. But as I say, we're hoping that that's not going to be the case here in Australia.
Okay, so it's a certain infection rate that there would be something that authorities would keep their eye on once that dips above a certain level. Is that an infection rate of above 1, for example? Is it 1.5? What sort of benchmark is it? Yes,
so the AHPPC, the peak committee that meets every day with the Chief Medical Officer and the Chief Health Officers from the states and territories, are monitoring the infection rates occurring every single day. And so we won't be caught out all of a sudden. If things do start to rise, we will see that happening over a period of time, and appropriate measures will be recommended and taken when that happens.
Is there a set figure on where that infection rate would get to, at which point things would be triggered again?
There's not a set figure at the moment.
Right, okay. British authorities are worried as well about a potential link between coronavirus and 2 different inflammatory conditions or similar symptoms, including the Kawasaki disease. What's your information at the moment on this link?
Well, it's still very early in our understanding of whether there is a definite link between COVID-19 and the Kawasaki disease. It's very concerning seeing this small number of children who've become significantly unwell in the UK. We have to remember that Kawasaki disease does occur normally. It's unclear exactly what the causes are. It appears, in some cases at least, to be related to a viral illness which has occurred. It hasn't been reported previously in relation to COVID-19. So still very early in our understanding about what this means. Fortunately, it is a syndrome which can be treated very effectively in children when this occurs.
Right, so there wouldn't be a concern even if there was a link in terms of possible fatality. For now, you're keeping an eye on this, but it doesn't change advice around schools and safety of children at schools?
Absolutely. It's a very rare occurrence. You've got to remember, in the UK has a very different epidemic than we have here in Australia, with much higher numbers of community transmission. We haven't seen this link here in Australia. We've had very small numbers of children who've been diagnosed positive with COVID-19 in Australia. It doesn't change the advice around schools. Absolutely essential that we're getting our children back into the classroom as quickly as possible all around the country.
What about younger children, even those very young children and babies at childcare? Do we know enough about COVID-19 to have the same a surety around their safety?
Yes, again, the science is still coming through on what's happening with everybody and the impact that COVID-19 has. But yes, we know that it is safe for younger children to be going to childcare as well, and obviously we'll continue to monitor the reports which come from those countries which have much larger epidemics and much larger community prevalence to see what, if any, impact this has on recommendations being made in our country.
So, because we've just had 2 cases at childcare, but you're saying all the advice you were giving for schools is just as applicable for childcare, even in the case of babies a few months old?
Babies who are a few months old, we don't know a lot about the impact that COVID-19 has on very small children, and those children are staying at home with their parents at the moment.
So the advice on childcare is what? Is there a certain age at which you say it's safe to send children back, but below a certain age for now they should stay at home? Is that 6 months? What age are we talking?
Yeah, I don't actually have the details on the age range for the children going to childcare.